Hey everyone, how's it going today? Today we're going to be doing brakes on a 2014 Audi A4 on the front. This applies from 2009 to 2016 Audi A4, Audi A5, and the same principles follow as well for the Audi S4 and Audi S5, and also on Audi Q5. So let's get to it. Okay guys, now just before we get started here, we want to go over the basic safety equipment to use. You're going to want to use a dust mask because the brake pads do let off a lot of dust. Ear protection for if you're using any type of impact tools as well too. Safety glasses, an absolute must. Gloves, if you like to use gloves, that's great. If not, you don't have to use gloves at all. Tools that you'll also need as well too. We're going to be using a 13mm socket to loosen the caliper bolts, a pry bar, which I'm going to use to compress the brake caliper, which I'll show you in a bit, a 17mm socket to get the lug nuts off. You can use either a breaker bar if you don't have a set of air tools to use. I'm using my air tools as well, and we're going to show you the parts we're going to be using today. Now, I like Brembo. I've used Brembo in the past. They're a really good product. The ceramic pads that you get with this kit are absolutely incredible. I mean, for the $80 that it costs, you're getting a premium brake pad, which also includes a nifty little sticker. You also get a brand new brake pad wear indicator sensor with your pads as well too. The 13mm caliper bolts, which you're also going to need to replace as well too, which are also included with the Brembo kit. And it also comes nicely wrapped individually as well too. Each set of pads for left and right. And also you also get a little bit of brake disc quiet lubricant as well too. Excellent value, I think, in my mind, because for what you're getting and including, these pads will last you years for normal driving. These are an OEM replacement pad, so they are a great fit for if you're going to be doing just a basic OE replacement from your factory pads. Also, I went with the UV coated rotors. Now, the UV coated rotors have a special coating on them that resists to rust, corrosion, salt, and sand. You'll see that it has a black powder coated finish around the inside of the hub facing and also on the top part of the rotor as well too. I'll take a better picture of it when I get it back out onto the car after we're done with the pads. Also comes with not one but two sets of set screws. Now the reason they do this is because if you can see how the set screw is, it's a really soft metal. So if you're trying to tighten it on there and you strip it, or if you lose one, which majority of the time happens, I've done tons of brakes for these in the past as I was an Audi mechanic in the past as well too. So having two of these is never a bad idea as well too. So I'm going to take the wheels off and then we're going to get started here in a few minutes, and we'll catch you in a bit. Okay guys, so I got the wheels off here now. Now, if I forget some tools along the way, I apologize. This is my first time doing this on video. So again, I'll probably forget some tools, but I'll add them on as I go along here. So you're gonna have, if you're doing your brakes for the first time on one of these, the set screw for the rotor is not going to be your traditional Phillips. It's actually going to be a Torx 30, just like what I've got right here. So you're going to want to make sure you get this off first. In my experience, taking these off last just is a headache if they're seized on there, if they're rusted, and then if you're fighting with it and you break actually or strip the inside of these threads, you're left fighting with it and cutting the rotor open just to get it off. It's an absolute headache. So these ones here, I checked them a little bit just before I got them off here. So now you can see how easy this one comes out here. What I like to do too is once I get the rotor and the entire assembly off, I like to lubricate the threads that this set screw goes back into, just to prevent it from corroding and rusting in case you need to take the rotors off in the future to do brakes again, which you probably will, because brakes don't last forever. So we'll move on to the next part here in a moment or so. I'm going to remove this retainer spring, and then we're also going to take off the caliper bolts at the back, and I'll show you the next steps after that. Okay guys, we're moving on to the stuff now. I'm going to take off this retainer spring. This retainer spring keeps the brake caliper in place and also applies even pressure between the front and the back of the piston when you're applying the brakes. So what I like to do here is just give it a quick little bend. Just you can use a pry bar and just flick it off like that. Just make sure nobody's standing behind you when you do it. These are reusable. You can usually check the tension on them. If they seem like they're pretty weak, you can replace them. They're not overly expensive. They're probably about $10, $20 a piece, depending on what quality and what brand you get. I suggest going with something more OEM. And just as a footnote too, the Brembo products I am using in today's video as a replacement are not sponsored. I did pay for these on my own. The total cost for the brakes cost me around $300 Canadian. So there's no sponsorship included with this, but hey, Brembo, if you're listening, you know, get a hold of me there. So now we're gonna get into the next step here, which is our caliper bracket bolts in the back. Actually, before I forget, we're going to compress the piston for the caliper into the back as well after we get these caliper bracket bolts off. Sorry guys, I know you want to see what's going on here. I'm just kind of cutting in front of the camera here. Again, it's my first time doing a YouTube video here. Usually when you crack them off, they usually tend to come off with your finger afterwards after a few ratchets. This car here has only got about 58,000 kilometers on it, super low for a 2014. But over time, these pads here, they don't seem to be worn down too bad. But the reason why we're replacing them, the inboard pad, which is the pad on the inside of the brake caliper, is actually worn down quite a bit. I don't know if you can see here, but it's almost kind of look like a record player on the outside of the rotor. Reason for that is that over time, dirt and debris from the roads, they start to collect in between the brake pad and the rotor, and every time you apply it, that brake pad is applying the pressure to the rotor, but it's also including the debris that it's collected off of the road, compromising this rotor. So this is pretty deep. It's making a lot of squealing noises. The brake pad pressure isn't that great because of the pad on the inboard side is pretty low as well too. So we're just going to go ahead and change these pads because and rotors as well too, because it is time for it as well. You can just use any type of a pry bar. You can just kind of wiggle the rotor or the caliper back and forth here until you jimmy it loose. What I also like to do too, you can compress the rotor two ways. Now one, you can stick your pry bar in between the inside of the caliper and in between the pad and the rotor. It's okay if you're damaging the old pad or the rotor because we're replacing it anyways. And you just kind of want to go like this. And what you're doing is you're compressing that piston inside the brake caliper there. And the rotor just comes right off, or caliper, sorry. As you can see on the inside of this pad here as well too, we've got some premature wear, as we would call it. So we've got some deep grooves up at the top and at the bottom of the pad here that was causing a lot of the noise issues that the customer is complaining about. It is pretty worn down. There is, like I had showed you in the beginning of the video with the brake pad wear indicator sensor, it would trigger off probably within the next 5 or 10,000 kilometers here. But again, because of the issues that the customer was complaining about, we're just gonna go ahead and change these pads now. But this is typically what would happen on a normally worn pad. Obviously this one has had some other issues that has come along with it as well. for the top part of the Now that one was a little bit harder to get off. What it is that factory brake pads and any good quality brake pads that you buy, OEM or aftermarket, is going to have this adhesive strip to it. And what it does is it sticks to the outboard part of the caliper here just to keep it locked into place. It's got a centering pin, as you can see in here as well too. That's going to also center the pad in between the brake caliper as well too. So that's why it was a little bit tougher to get off. Also, these pads are original pads. They've probably only ever been serviced maybe 2 or 3 times since 2014. So it's definitely time to replace these pads. All right, now we're moving on to the next step. We're going to be taking off the caliper bracket. So the caliper bracket is what you see is this piece here. That's the piece that holds the caliper on, and it also holds the, well, doesn't really hold, but keeps the rotor from coming off without taking this piece off first. So we're going to take this piece off next. You're going to need a 21 mil socket on a swivel head. If you don't have one, you can always use a very long breaker bar, just as long as you get enough leverage on it. Those bolts are on there pretty tight. I'm not exactly sure the torque specs. So I'm going to use my impact gun here, and we're just going to zip them off real quick. Another thing too, if you can see, I've got the caliper hanging just right from the top of the strut assembly as well there too. I just use an old metal coat hanger to hang it from there. It's secure, it's safe, it's not going to go anywhere. If it does fall off, then that's on me. All right, now we got the bracket off. You're gonna see these lands here. They're gonna need to be cleaned up. So if you've got a wire wheel brush or any type of sandpaper, anything coarse enough, you wanna clean these up here because that's what the pads ride on when you're applying brake pressure. So make sure you clean those off and get them ready for brake lubricant when you're ready to put the new pads on. We're going to take the rotor off real quick here too. Usually these rotors are seized on, so what I like to do is just give them a quick little tap with a hammer, something like this. Any type of hammer you guys got is fine. Generally you just want to tap it all the way around. They should come pretty loose. If not, you'll want to hit it from the back part here. Don't hit it in this area because this is the dust shield. You can damage it, and they are fairly expensive to replace. Going around the rotor like that, what you're doing is you're applying pressure on each corner. So now the rotor is moving in a clockwise, counterclockwise, whichever way I went with it. And then when you give it one last tap at the back there, generally it just comes right off. Alrighty. So this is the first part of the disassembly of the brakes. Now we're going to repeat the process after I get everything all cleaned up. Now what you're going to want to do, if you have a wire brush, wire wheel brush, sandpaper on a rotor, or on a die grinder, clean this area up here, because this rust you do not want to be present when putting on the new parts, because it will compromise how flush everything sits on there. This is the hole for where that set screw was to hold the rotor on, as well as two. You can put a little bit of brake lubricant in there. You can put a little bit of dielectric grease, or not dielectric grease, sorry, lithium grease, just to keep that part lubricated. So in the future, when you go to take off the brakes again and do a brake job on it as well, that part won't be seized on there and it'll come off really easily. So we'll see you guys when we're starting to reassemble everything. Okay guys, just another quick tip here. Whenever you're replacing parts for the first time on a vehicle, you always want to do what's called verifying the parts. Now, verifying the parts is making sure that the parts are all the same size. So for instance, this rotor here measures up to be 12.5 inch rotor. Now we go over to our new rotor here, still in the package. You've got 12.5. The plastic may look like it's a little bit bigger, but it's not. This is important because anytime where you're buying new parts and putting them on, you always want to make sure that they are the right size. Sometimes the parts guys, they may do a mix-up. I know Audi does offer a bunch of different sizes. Generally, the bigger rotors are usually for the Audi S4 and S5 because they're more of a performance model. This is more of a base model A4 here. So just do yourself, save yourself the headache before you start putting all brand new parts on and then realizing, oh shoot, the parts are too big or they're too small for what they are from my old parts there. Verify the parts. Same goes for the brake pads here. As you can see, I just took one out of the pack and just lined it up here real quick just to make sure that they do line up and that they're the same, in which they are. Again, this one here comes with the new 3M double-sided tape, which is the adhesive that connects to the back of the inboard and the outboard part of the caliper when you're installing the new pads here as well too. So I'm going to get started here and we'll see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I'm just at the step here. This is very crucial. I've seen people skip this in the past. A lot of brake jobs that have come into my shop wherever I've worked before. This is a common problem. People don't take out the slider pins. Now the slider pins are at the back of the caliper. What that does is it makes the caliper slide back and slide forward when brake pressure is applied and brake pressure is released. This is a very crucial part because if these slider pins dry out, one side could be stuck and one side could be free, causing the caliper to apply brake pressure unevenly and cause premature wear to the pad, and it could wear unevenly, causing squealing, uneven pad pressure to stop. So do yourself a favor, pop these out. They're very easy to clean. Sometimes they may be a little bit rusted on the very ends here where you can see the grooves in them. These ones are really clean. The purple stuff that you see on here is just the brake lubricant that I've used to put back onto it. And all you do is you slide it right back into the rubber here. Also check the rubbers all the way around just to make sure to see if there isn't any cracking on them, because if there's cracking, moisture will get into there and it will cause condensation, and these will dry out a lot faster. And also the grease that I've applied on here, the brake lubricant, will escape out of that crack inside that plastic, or sorry, inside that rubber hardware kit as well there too. If yours is cracked and you need to replace them, I've replaced them in the past. They're very inexpensive, anywhere between $8 and $10. So spend a little bit now or spend a lot more later. Okay guys, so as you can see, I've cleaned up this hub facing here pretty good. I put some of the brake lubricant all the way around on it. What that does is it just prevents it from seizing up in when you go to do the next brake change as well too. You can see I've applied some grease to the inside of that hole there for the brake set screw as well too. And I've also cleaned up the caliper bracket here as well too, and applied some of the brake lubricant as well too. Now if you're wondering what stuff I've been using, It's Permatex Ceramic Extreme Brake Lubricant. This stuff is awesome. I use it in the shop and here at home. I've used it for years. It's probably one of the best stuff on the market there. Anywhere between $20 and $40 a bottle. It lasts you super long if you're very generous with it. You don't need a whole lot of it. So just apply it on the spots where you know that there's going to be sliding pieces. Like I said, I applied it also onto the brake slider pins on the caliper as well. So now we're going to put everything back together and we'll be finished up very soon. Okay guys, now we're going to be reinstalling the new pads on the back of, or the inside of the caliper, sorry. Again, this is my first time doing a YouTube video, so don't grade me on grammar or anything else right now. I'm trying to do the best I can to help you guys out here. The intentions of this video is clearly to help you guys you know, do the brakes yourself. It is pretty easy, straightforward. It's probably easier than most brake systems I've done on some other cars like Hyundais, Toyotas, etc. So what we're going to do now, I've just taken the tape off the back of the brake pad here. So now you've exposed the adhesive, you can kind of see the little bit of sheen to it. This is going to be the inboard pad. So this is the part that's going to go into the inside of the brake caliper on the piston side. I'll show you right now. So you're going to take this clip here and you're just going to grab it from the back. And now it's sitting flush with the piston. So now that pad is in there. We're going to go ahead and do the outboard pad as well. And again, you've got a little piece of the tab here to remove the protective part that protects the film. You see the shine on it. It's a really nice pad, high grade ceramic. Brembo knows how to do it. For this one here, you're just going to line it up here. There's going to be that hole in the center of the caliper. And just like that. Now we're going to mount the caliper onto the bracket. I've already gone ahead and torqued down all of the caliper bracket as well too. So now you're going to line up the little hooks on the pad here just with the lands on the caliper. Just make sure your slider pins are pushed in all the way because they'll obstruct you from getting the caliper back on. And there you go. Now next we're going to do here, we've got a new set of caliper pins that was provided in the brake pad kit from Brembo here. So as you can see, we've got 4 brand new pins. They've already got some Loctite on the ends of the threads here. So just as soon as I can get my fingers to open this bag here, I apologize. Okay, and now we're just going to start these on by hand. You don't want to cross thread anything. So first one up at the top here. And then we can go with the bottom. You may have to wiggle the caliper a little bit just so you can get it lined up with the hole there. All right. Next, what I want to do is we're going to reinstall the retainer clip. Now, a lot of people dread putting these on because, yes, they can be quite a pain in the butt to put on. Everybody has their own way of putting them on. I'll show you the way I do it. I find it works the best way. And so what I like to do here, sorry. me tell I'm Canadian when I say sorry a lot, right? That's how we do it up here. You just put just a little dab brake lubricant right on the ends there, just so it ensures it slides a little bit better. Just like so. So I've lined it up in the center. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just making it slip off. Grab your screwdriver or pry bar or whatever you're using. There you go. Set right on there. May take you a few times if you're a first timer doing this, not a big deal. You know, you're not rushing to do this. Take your time. You'll eventually get a hang of it, and whatever system you find works best for you, by all means go about that. Just make sure it's pretty set. Give it a little tap in the middle. Make sure the ends are flush with the spindle or the brake caliper bracket here. Now we can go ahead and tighten down the back of our 13 mil. And that's it, guys. You've just successfully completed doing a brake job on your Audi A4/A5/S4/S5/Audi Q3, whatever it is you're working on. The removal of the brake pad sensor wire is pretty straightforward. I've got just a little piece of one here. I haven't started on the driver's side. Just because this side was a little bit easier to access. So you can see the piece here. This part here slides into the pad and then it just unhooks. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You'll get the new wire. It's going to unhook right from the back of the harness. That's right behind the spindle there. You'll see the routing. Just the remove and reinstall process is the exact same way. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to look at this video. Please throw me a like if you like it. If there's any other brake jobs you'd like to see in the future, please put it in the comments below. And I want to thank everybody again. If you got any questions, just shoot me a message. Leave it in the comments down there. And thanks. Hopefully you were able to bear with me this entire time because it was a little bit of a struggle for me. Again, this is my first YouTube video I've ever made. Where I'm doing a removal and replace of parts. So again, you have any questions or you'd like to see me do anything else in the future there, just drop in the comments below. Thanks, guys.